Greetings, justice seekers. Welcome to Justice, Not Justice, Season 1, Episode 17. So we just had a hearing that went very badly, the very first hearing in front of the judge assigned to this case. And Jeremiah is very clear that he is not in the favor of the judge. And that, unfortunately, his attorney did not represent him and therefore decided that he was going to fire his attorney because you're doing more harm than good by allowing the lies and the story to perpetuate and to not be dealing with that. And that, unfortunately, is exactly what his attorney did. So he decided to let his attorney go. So now he is going to be representing himself pro se. And one of the first things that he did after that documentation was approved by the judge was he wrote a letter to the judge. At the risk of seeming like I'm stating the obvious at this point, I'm the one who is composing the letters, obviously in consultation with Jeremiah, and this is not me, but I am a writer and Jeremiah is not, and I also am a very good communicator and he's not, and so it just makes sense that I'm going to be the ones writing these things. So, Your Honor, on October 9, it is with regret and consternation that I released my attorney, John Dries, from my case. I worked with Attorney Dries nearly 20 years ago during my divorce from my first wife, and he did an excellent job, which is why I retained him for this divorce. Unfortunately, I fear that Attorney Dries might currently be suffering from some loss of capacity. I began being concerned about this a couple months ago based on some observations, but it was solidified for me during our hearing with you and in reading your findings and order. I have nothing but respect for Attorney Dries and desire to disparage him in absolutely no way. At this point in my divorce, I cannot afford to retain another attorney, so I'm going to complete the process pro se and in tandem with my agent, Kristen Reedstrom. Documentation authorizing this enclosed. So Jeremiah assigned me a power of attorney to represent him in certain situations, this being one of them. And I also want to apologize at this point. I don't personally like being read to, but I feel like in this situation, it's really important that you understand and hear what the judge heard. So please bear with me. And I want to make sure that, that I don't just gloss anything over. Okay. The tenor of your conversation during our hearing, and particularly those comments addressed to me, caused me to begin feeling very concerned that my position was not fairly, correctly, or accurately presented to you in chambers. My concern was confirmed when I read your findings and order. Now, just as a note, we walked out of the courtroom, out of that hearing, without knowing what the findings and order were, so we found that out a couple days later. It is now imperative that I give you the complete picture of what has transpired since even before I filed for divorce, as it is crystal clear to me now that you only know part truths, lies, omissions, and fractures of the entire story. So I have evidence and documentation, and I'm not going to read all of that. And he says, I'm going to not overwhelm you with all of that, but if you would like to see it, I'm more than happy to provide it. All right, so I'd like to begin first by addressing point 3 of your findings. I am deeply disturbed that it was conveyed that I did not exercise placement for months because I have a girlfriend. And what is even more concerning to me is that this is what the guardian ad litem reported, even though she knows this is not true. Going back to February 18, Attorney Christopoulos, Jamie's attorney, presented to my attorney a temporary stipulation and order, or a TSO, and that's enclosed, which specified use of the marital residence, physical placement, and various other provisions, not the least of which the provision about, no significant other. Jamie is furious and terrified that I filed for divorce. The fact of the matter is, we have been talking about divorce since the summer of 2017, long before I met Kristen. Fortunately for Jamie, Kristen came along in the fall of 2017, providing Jamie with a convenient scapegoat and opportunity to convince herself and everyone else that she is the victim of Kristen. Jeremiah left me for her. This is simply not true, and Jamie fully knows it. That being said, this provision I just pointed to was directed toward my relationship with Kristen. And to go back just a little bit, back to December and January, before the divorce was filed, when they were still in the house together and Jamie was having her tirades and making all of her threats and things like that, she was very clear that if Kristen is going to be picking up my kids, it's not going to happen. And, effectively expressing very grave concern that I was going to replace her as her children's mother, which was never, ever going to happen for so many reasons, not the least of which I'm not their mother. She's their mom. But so it was imperative to her in anything that I be explicitly targeted and excluded, which was okay for, the beginning. In the interest of promoting goodwill, Kristen and I were perfectly happy to comply with her demand that the children not be around Kristen. As well, I proceeded to comply with every line item delineated in the TSO. Jamie proceeded to comply with none of them. As a matter of fact, on 2 days before our first hearing in front of a court commissioner, Jamie's attorney informed my attorney that she had no intention of honoring the provision in the TSO that said that I shall have the exclusive use of the marital residence beginning May 1st. She said, I'm not leaving. So she never intended to follow through with any of those things that they had agreed on back in January. By this point, having spent several hundreds of dollars trying to, we're explaining, have physical placement without them having contact with Kristen, with whom I was living in a 1-bedroom at the time because I was forcibly removed from my home, and having nowhere to take them and running out of money, the Airbnb thing. Initially, Kristen was not intending to be around that weekend. However, given the timing of everything, she was there checking in with the owner of the Airbnb, who also wanted to meet me. It turns out that my children met Kristen that Friday. The children were cool, meaning not cool like, hey, but cold, standoffish. But it didn't take them long to warm up to Kristen. She is a lovely woman with a teenage son of her own. As a matter of fact, over the course of the weekend, her son came over. They all played. We had a barbecue. My sister, their aunt, came. It was a lovely weekend. Late Sunday afternoon, I was taking a nap, and Kristen was trying to usher the children to pack up their things so that we could get them to dinner at home and according to their schedule. And they were very unhappy with her and her attempts to get them to do this. So somehow between Sunday evening and our hearing in front of the court commissioner, which was a couple days later, circumstances were spun by Jamie to the degree that all of a sudden Kristen was being investigated by the Wauwatosa police and the Milwaukee County DA for child abuse. The first time anybody heard of any such allegations were during our hearing in front of a court commissioner, at which time the GL was assigned. If Jamie had never falsely accused my girlfriend of abusing our children, we would likely not even be having a guardian ad litem in this matter. Needless to say, no charges were pursued and she did not abuse my children. At this point, it was becoming increasingly clear to me that Jamie was desperate and willing to try anything to get either me and or my girlfriend thrown in jail. She was dangerous before, see details later regarding her multiple abuse charges. Now she is threatening the freedom and safety of my family and friends. At this point, I determined that it was unsafe for me to continue visitation with my children, not because I have a new girlfriend, but because their mother will clearly go to any lengths out of her own rage and wrath to jeopardize the lives of other people. No holds barred. Attorney Bangert knows all of this, yet she presented to you a completely false, skewed against me picture of why I did not see my children for months. Okay, I'm going to end this video there, and this is a lengthy letter. We have a lot of ground to make up with this judge. Obviously, he was presented with a very incorrect and small picture of the history, and as I have said in one of my earlier videos, this is one of the downfalls of this system, is that they don't take the time to really understand the context in which they're making life decisions about people and their children. And this judge had no clue, and he didn't even question any of it. He didn't even question any of it. Tune in. There's more, and I'll see you soon.